I only have for a 34 cent. Is that enough for a birthday cake? A 6-year-old girl asked. Then a CEO stepped in. The little girl's trembling hands barely reached the top of the bakery counter as she carefully placed a handful of coins onto the polished glass. Her tiny fingers counted them again and again, hoping they would somehow become enough. Behind her, impatient customers sighed, while the smell of fresh cakes filled the air. She looked up with watery eyes, clutching a worn hospital bracelet around her wrist, and whispered the words that stopped every heartbeat in the room. She only had 134 cents, and she wanted a birthday cake, not for herself, but for the only person she was afraid of losing forever. Before we continue this emotional journey, if you believe kindness still exists and that one act of compassion can change a life forever, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Beyond Inspire. Your support helps us continue bringing inspiring stories that remind the world that humanity is still alive. Emily was only 6 years old, but life had already taught her lessons many adults never experience. Her mother, Sarah, had spent months in the hospital fighting a rare illness that drained every dollar they had ever saved. Medical bills had swallowed their apartment, their car, and almost every piece of furniture they once owned. They now lived in a tiny shelter room provided by a local charity, where every day was a battle between hope and survival. Sarah had always hidden her pain behind a smile. Even on the hardest days, she braided Emily's hair, kissed her forehead, and promised that everything would be okay. Emily believed every word because, to a child, a mother's promise feels stronger than reality itself. Tomorrow was Sarah's birthday. Emily had overheard 2 nurses quietly talking outside the hospital room. One had said she wasn't sure Sarah would be healthy enough to celebrate another birthday next year. Emily didn't fully understand the medical words, but she understood enough to know that tomorrow mattered more than anything. She remembered how, years earlier, her mother had surprised her with a tiny homemade birthday cake decorated with colorful candy because they couldn't afford frosting. Sarah had apologized for how simple it looked, but Emily had thought it was the most beautiful cake in the world. Now Emily wanted to return that love. For 3 weeks, she had collected every coin she could find. She picked up change people accidentally dropped near vending machines. She returned empty bottles for recycling. One elderly neighbor secretly handed her a few quarters after noticing her determination. Every single coin represented hope. When she finally counted everything together, the total was exactly $1.30 to Emily. It felt like a fortune. She walked nearly 2 miles to the nicest bakery in town because she believed beautiful birthday cakes only came from beautiful places. The warm lights inside made the shelves sparkle with colorful pastries and elegant cakes decorated with roses, ribbons, and delicate icing. She had never seen anything so wonderful. The cashier looked at the coins before looking back at Emily with confusion. Customers in line began watching. Some smiled sympathetically. Others grew impatient. Emily pointed toward a small white cake decorated with strawberries. In her innocent mind, she believed small things always cost small amounts. The cashier quietly checked the price. The cake cost $42. Emily didn't cry immediately. Instead, she slowly pushed her coins closer and asked if maybe they could remove some of the decorations. Maybe they could make it smaller. Maybe they could use less frosting. Maybe birthdays didn't need candles. Each suggestion broke the hearts of people listening nearby. The bakery employee wished she could help, but store's policy didn't allow free products without management approval. Emily nodded politely. She began gathering her coins back into her tiny hands. That was when someone standing silently near the back of the line finally stepped forward. His name was Daniel Brooks. Most people in the city recognized him as the CEO of one of the country's largest technology companies. Newspapers often described him as brilliant, wealthy, and impossible to impress. Few people knew that 25 years earlier, Daniel himself had once stood inside a bakery with empty pockets after losing his own mother to illness before he could buy her birthday gift. He never forgot that feeling. Watching Emily brought every painful memory rushing back. Instead of reaching for his wallet immediately, Daniel quietly knelt beside her so they were eye level. He noticed the hospital bracelet still wrapped around her wrist. He noticed how carefully she protected every coin. He noticed she wasn't asking for charity. She simply wanted a chance. Daniel asked the bakery manager if they could prepare the most beautiful birthday cake they had ever made. Not the $42 cake, not the $100 cake displayed in the center. He wanted something unforgettable. The staff stared in surprise. Within minutes, decorators began working together. Fresh flowers were arranged. Delicate icing covered every layer. Golden candles were carefully placed around the edges. While the cake was being prepared, Daniel gently asked Emily about her mother. As she described Sarah, everyone nearby fell silent. She spoke about bedtime stories, warm hugs, and how her mom always pretended not to be hungry so Emily could eat the last piece of bread. She explained that birthdays were important because they reminded people they were loved. Not a single customer remained dry-eyed. When the enormous cake was finally presented, Emily's eyes widened with disbelief. She immediately looked at Daniel. Then she looked back at her little pile of coins. She insisted he take her $1.34 because that money belonged to her mother's birthday. Daniel accepted every single coin with both hands. He carefully placed them inside his suit pocket. He later said those coins became the most valuable money he had ever received. But Daniel's kindness didn't end there. He asked where Sarah was staying. That afternoon, he personally visited the hospital. The nurses couldn't believe what they were seeing as bakery staff rolled in the magnificent cake surrounded by balloons and flowers. Sarah burst into tears before anyone even explained what had happened. Emily ran into her mother's arms, holding the cake as proudly as if she had baked it herself. For the first time in months, the hospital room echoed with laughter instead of silence. Patients from neighboring rooms gathered around. Doctors paused their busy schedules. Nurses sang happy birthday together. For one beautiful afternoon, illness lost its power. Daniel quietly stood near the doorway watching the celebration. Then he noticed something else, Sarah's medical file sitting beside the bed. Curious, he asked one of the doctors about her condition. The doctor explained that while treatment existed, the family simply couldn't afford the next stage. Without hesitation, Daniel instructed his assistant to establish a medical fund covering every remaining expense. He also arranged temporary housing, transportation, and educational support for Emily. He didn't announce it to the media. He didn't invite reporters. He simply remembered what it felt like to lose someone you love because help arrived too late. Months passed. Sarah slowly regained her strength through treatment. Emily returned to school. The shelter room became a comfortable apartment. Birthdays transformed from painful reminders into celebrations of survival. Daniel continued visiting occasionally, never as a billionaire, but as a family friend. Every year on Sarah's birthday, Emily baked a small homemade cake. It was never expensive. It wasn't perfectly decorated. But Daniel always said those cakes tasted better than any luxury dessert money could buy because they were filled with gratitude instead of sugar. Years later, when Emily graduated from college, she carried something unexpected onto the stage, a tiny glass frame. Inside it rested $1.34. Daniel had secretly returned the coins to her on her 18th birthday, along with a handwritten note. Never believe the value of your gift is measured by its price. That day, your love was worth more than everything I owned. The audience stood and applauded before Emily even finished reading the note. She smiled through tears, knowing her mother was sitting proudly in the front row. healthy, alive, and celebrating another birthday they once feared would never come. Before we reach the end, we'd love to hear from you. Please comment below. What would you have done if you had witnessed this little girl's courage inside that bakery? Stories like this remind us that miracles don't always begin with millions of dollars. Sometimes they begin with $1.34, a brave little heart, and one person willing to notice. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to Beyond Inspire. Your support helps us continue sharing powerful stories that inspire kindness, hope, and second chances. Never underestimate the impact of one compassionate decision, because the smallest act of love can become the greatest gift someone ever receives.